So before getting into the story itself, I want to give some backstory on something that happened when I was around the age of 9. I grew up in a village called Hotlax in the northern parts of Sweden. The road leading from my school to my home was a long one, where the local authorities had to put up lamps which emitted a very dim blue light. I always felt like a nervous wreck when I had to walk to and from my school. Both because, even with the lamps, the road was very dark, and also because I was bullied, so the bullies could have waited in the woods right next to the road. It was one event that I remembered vividly during the winter of 1999. I'd slept poorly the night before and the math lesson had been killing me, so I barely felt awake when I was beginning to walk home. The lamps were off, which isn't really so weird, as the sensors for the lamps were pretty low, so any kid could have taken a flashlight, put it towards the sensors, and after a few seconds, the lamps would shut down for a few minutes. Since I was so tired, I'd closed my eyes when I started walking. But after walking about 20 meters on this road, I opened my eyes and noticed that the lamps were off, and I stopped. I was getting nervous. I was reasoning with myself and decided to push on. I was 10, and in my youthful arrogance, I thought I had reached the age where my balls should have been as hard as Duke Nukem's. Hotlax is a very quiet village, so I was barely hearing anything except the wind when this happened. To the left of the road is a very thick forest, and suddenly I could just hear this loud scream coming from it. It was very similar to the male scream you can hear in movies when someone's in huge pain. With the speed of Usain Bolt, I ran as fast as I could towards my home without looking back. Now we're jumping to late autumn 2011. My parents were on a trip to the Canary Islands and asked me to move into their house just for the week so I could take care of the dog. The thought of spending a whole week in my old room, listening to my old Mayhem CDs and eating pizza were just too good to be true. I always walked with my dog outside during midnight, because then I didn't have to take him outside again until the late morning hours. This time was no different, except I decided to walk a bit longer. I decided to walk along Oxelvägen and then follow Innimarksvägen towards Norra Hotlaxvägen. There are no lamps on the most parts of Innimarksvägen, so after leaving Oxelvägen, I stopped. I lit a cigar and told my dog to stay close to me. While walking along the road, I was just enjoying the fresh air and listening to the sound of leaves rustling in the trees. There's a pretty big area next to the road where they have chopped down a lot of trees. When I came to that area, my dog stopped and started barking towards the area I described. When I looked towards the area, I could see the silhouette of a person. The only visible parts were the hands. I said, "What the hell," with a pretty loud voice. The person turned around towards me. If I didn't know any better, I could have sworn that only the head and hands turned, as I didn't see any movements at all on the rest of the body. A white mask. The guy was wearing a white mask with a slit for each of his eyes. My dog started whimpering. The guy raised his right hand, with all of his fingers pointing towards me, and he screamed. It sounded like the exact same scream I had heard as a kid walking home from school that afternoon. What must have been survival instincts, I just started running. When I had ran for 20 meters or so, I stopped to see if my dog was still with me, which he was, and then looked towards the spot the guy had stood. He wasn't there. He had moved to the spot where I stood, now with his hands down, but the mask still towards me. I started running again until I got to Norra Hotlaxvägen. I'd never been so scared before. When I stopped, I was crying and my whole body was shaking. And then I walked home.